All right, welcome back. Coach D hosted himself yesterday. Did a phenomenal job, killing it.
Learn
And
from the
he's to my
best.
he's to my right, Coach Human, and we have a great guest on today, Coach Bedwell, who's assistant coach with the Ohio Valley Ironmen. Just came out of the UFL. It's been rising fast in the coaching ranks. Um, I would say is probably a disciple of a little bit of the air raid area of offense, and we'll let him talk about all that stuff. We'll dive into all that in a second. But before we do, I want to introduce Coach. And Coach, we want to have you, just dive into your background as a coach, player, and up to today's point.
Yeah, sure. So, originally from a small town in Arkansas near the Texas border, and actually played baseball at small colleges for 3 years. But I had always planned on coaching football. And so, going into it was the spring of 2005, I just went and got all these old VHS tapes from when I played high school ball and sent them out to like all these NAIs, D3, small colleges, just anywhere that would maybe give me a chance to come play football and learn what it's like at that level for a year. Ended up going to a Trinity Bible College in Ellendale, North Dakota, which is no longer has a program, but really, really small school in a really small town. And I had heard of them because they had gotten beat 105-0 by Rockford College like 2 years before that. And Rockford was like a 2-win team that year.
Wow.
So it was kind of a, if I can't play here, then I can't play anywhere type situation. So went there, played the fall of 05, and our head coach, Jim Dotson, had coached in Europe a little bit. So he had some connections over there. And in the spring of 06, I ended up going to Basel, Switzerland and playing, and that set off a career that from 06 to 19, I was playing in Europe every year. Ended up having a really good career over there, winning a lot of championships. And from 2008 on, I would come back most years and coach college football. So I'd come back and just coach in season. And I guess it was the AFCA convention in 2015, I spoke in Louisville. And I'd met Hal a few times before that. I've been running the air raid since 2009. And had spent time with Hal and especially with his son, Matt Mummy, at different clinics, things like that. So when you bring up the disciple thing, I'd say at this point I might be Hal's biggest disciple that's left.
Right.
But 2015 AFCA, that's the first time we'd really hung out outside of a setting that was not just like a clinic or something. And he invited me back to his hotel. I was a guest on his XM radio show at the time, talking about football in Europe. And he asked me to stay and have dinner with him and his friends. And, so I got to meet like Sam Gwynn was one of the people there who wrote the book, The Perfect Pass. And has probably wrote a lot of other fantastic books.
Great book. Yeah, great book.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, big group of people there. And during that, I guess, dinner, Hal was just like, "You're smart. I want you to coach for me." So, what he said that, he always says that 90% of the people in our profession aren't very smart, to put it kindly.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm sure he used those exact ones.
Yeah.
Sure.
But he's like, you're smart. Come coach for me. So I went down to Belhaven in Mississippi with him in the fall of 15. And since then, I've been associated with him in one way or another. We didn't always coach together every year, but, like in 2020, when he was with Bob Stoops and the Renegades, I went there and helped coach during their training camp. And then in 21, and when he was there coaching the spring league, he called me up and asked me to come help run the offense with him and be the quarterback coach and backup quarterback. So,
just in case.
Yeah. That was a lot of fun. I got to throw a touchdown it was a run play. That was a pretty fun time. Like, I got him for 2 drives at quarterback, and the rest I just held kicks and called plays and stuff. And but whenever the drive I went in, we were up by a lot, obviously. And I go in and I looked over, and the first 2 plays he called were runs, so I never looked at him again, and I just called the rest of the drive and down to a touchdown. He was actually pretty pissed whenever I came off, but I was like, this is my time to shine. I got to play in Europe forever. I want to throw a touchdown on TV in America.
Right.
But now Hal's great, and we've been together ever since. And, we were working pretty much forever for the last 2.5 years on this International Football Alliance thing. And we've been settled in with having a program down in San Antonio, and we'd recruited a great group of guys. And, over time we saw different coaches come in, like Manny Matsakis here, and with the Ohio Valley team. And we just never, I think more than anything, with already 2 football teams being in San Antonio, having the Gunslingers and then the Brahmas, I just don't know, if there was room for it. And we just never really got the funding that we needed. And so a couple weeks ago, before we started training camp, we shut that down. And I felt my obligation was to all of our players to try to get them somewhere to play, because some of them have been signed with us all the way since like last August. And the last thing I wanted was an MLFB type situation where all these guys came and then they didn't get to play anywhere. And so I called Manny and, asked him if he needed any guys. And there was, at the time, he said, we could take a few. And, I asked him what he needed. And then as we got to talking in that conversation, I was like, well, I plan on coaching down here all summer. I can come coach with you. And he was like, yeah, for sure. Of course, he told me the next day he called Hal first to get Hal's blessing. But
he didn't want to piss off the Godfather.
Yeah. You never want to piss off anybody listening named the Godfather.
Yeah, that's at all.
But
Coach, that's awesome.
But yeah, so came here now working with Manny, and I think we got 9 players that were signed with San Antonio with us up here. And it's been really cool learning, the running shoot, his version of it, the triple shoot. And each week we're putting in more air raid concepts. And our idea here is we're going to call it the raid and shoot. And
nice.
We're working like every day on like, actually the whiteboard back behind me right now, I have some stuff there that I'm looking at, but we're working on ways to really marry the two. I know that Hal and June at SMU back in 2013, they worked on it. They were calling it the Air Raid 2.0.
Right.
But, a lot of it was mostly run and shoot with adding a lot of mesh.
Right.
A lot of ways of running mesh. And what we're doing is working on a true combination where you've got 6 run and shoot concepts and 6 air raid concepts, and kind of working the pass schemes where they like work in. And our goal here is to just make this like the most dynamic passing system ever.
So you're
that's
meshing the 2 worlds. So that's interesting, meshing the 2 worlds. What is it?
Yeah.
So
nice play on words, Dave. I don't know if you made to. That was a good play on words, though. Mesh. Like I like that. That good play on words, buddy.
I wonder. So for people who don't know, like, so coaches like who don't understand maybe the air raid system as well, don't understand the run and shoot system as well. Dive a little bit into. Just a couple of points of some of the main principles of each, and what you hope to accomplish with meshing the 2 kind of worlds.
Yeah. Well, if I were to describe the air raid, I think, similarities between both is that they both have very few concepts, and at its core, very few formations. I don't think you're going to find any run and shoot offense that runs very many formations.
Nope.
Everybody says they're air raid.
Yeah.
And I think that's became a term for people that just throw the ball a lot. But
you're 100% right, Coach, because you talk to a million high school guys. Oh, we're air raid, and are you really air raid, or do you just throw more than you run,
or use more, or use a couple of concepts? That's probably
right.
Yeah. And I think everybody, it's hard to find any pass offense that doesn't use
the
concepts. And But I would say as a whole, what I would describe air raid is few plays, few formations. And that beats like what I see a lot is people will say we're air raid, we run, 6 or 7 concepts out of 50 formations. We're simple. It's like, no, that's not simple. That's complicated. Every time you run a formation, guys line up different. The timing's a little bit different. And for us, it's few plays out of few formations. And I think that's very similar with run and shoot because
Damn
a
right.
lot of the plays there, for at its core, it's more just 2x2, 3x1, and a lot of the concepts you only run out of 2x2 or 3x1. And we're kind of the same with an air raid that, there's certain we only run about 5 formations, and there's no concept we have that we run out of all 5 formations. So I think both are very similar in a sense that it's all about repetition and getting really good at what you're doing. One big difference with the run and shoot is there's so many moving parts after the snap, reading safeties in different ways. And we have that to an extent, but most of, the concepts that we do have reading the safety or the corner and how they adjust are all just one adjustment and a lot of that you can kind of tell pre-snap where with the run and shoot, a lot of guys are thinking on the fly. Sometimes there's 3 or 4 adjustments for each route. And so I think that that's something that really stands out to me as a difference between the two. Air raid, we probably base more in the true air raid, that mummy air raid, which I always call it true air raid. I mean, he invented it, so that maybe pisses some people off. But
if you're not pissing somebody off, you're not doing it right, Coach. That's just how this world works. You know that.
Yeah, a little side tangent. I think I'm too much from the mummy leech tree that you're going to hear me say a bunch of side tangents when we talk. But that's pretty funny. We were down in Texas at we had the first ever air raid national convention a few years ago in Waco. And there was a high school coach from Texas that had led the state in all levels in passing. And he was up there. He spoke right before Mummy, and his topic was mesh. And he spoke for, an hour or whatever. And then Mummy steps up, and his topic was mesh too as the keynote speaker. And he said, all right, now I'm how Mummy, I invented this offense, and now I'm going to teach you the right way to run mesh.
Oh, nice. That's okay. All right. That's saying a little. That's making a statement before you start your speech. That's not bad.
Well, the biggest difference, like say for mesh, for example, is we really only run one tag with it. I do a ton of consultation for about the last 4 years with high schools, college coaches, staffs, individual coaches, and one of the biggest questions I get is, what's your favorite variation of mesh? And I'm like, well, we only got the base way and then one tag. We don't. Right. The only tag we do is post wheel. We don't do like rail and all these other, tons of different ways that people do it. Mesh pyramid. I've heard different things like that. We just run it one way. And so what's the one now? Traffic everybody runs. And yeah, we don't have that. So for us, it's just all about being really good at the base plays. And then even as you go through the games, we just find tags on each. We're going to go in with our base plays, and that's all we're going to practice all week. And then if you're taking it away, we're going to say, well, why are they taking, why cross away? So, well, the play side safety, the corner's able to cover our X over there vertical. The wheel's got our SAM. If the answer is, or if the corner's not taken away, for example, let's say the play side safety in the corner, double teaming our X, who's usually our best one-on-one guy. Wheels coming down, taking our H on. We run it as an option route. Some run it as like a 5-yard out or a 10-yard out. But if they're both taken away, we should have the cross winning. But why is it not winning? Okay, the backside safety's coming down to cover the cross. So then we say, okay, well, we're going to tag Z post and have that Z post over that backside safety's head. So it's just little things like that we're constantly looking for. If you're taking away, how are you taking it away? How do we adjust to it to make you pay for taking it away? Mesh is one that, if you ever watch us in our 2-back set, which we call blue, from my little screen right here, we'd have like the X and Z all the way out here on the numbers. and the Y will be in a bit more, and then we have our line. If we're running mesh, you're going to see X and Z both squeeze way in because the X needs to be in closer to run the mesh with the Y, and the Z needs to come in because he has some option routes where he can break it out. And so it's very, I could show you 10 stills of us lined up in the blue formation. And if 3 of them we were running mesh, anybody, a novice could say, oh, a beginner could say, oh, that's that mesh play because they're all like squeezed in. And people would say like, well, you're giving it away. Doesn't that hurt you? And it doesn't. Like we actually like that because if you play us, we know that that we're going to run mesh. And so the sooner that we line up in that, we get to see how you practiced all week to defend mesh. And if and a lot of times what you did doesn't work. And we can just keep running our base mesh. But sometimes we play people that come up with a really good plan and it's hard for us. So we'll run it 2 or 3 times. We're a very patient offense. It's not air raid is I'd say run and shoot is a lot more explosive offense where you're throwing the ball downfield a lot more big plays. Air raid's really a really patient offense. So we're playing ball control. I know Leach once said that our offense is closest to the wishbone, that we're just spreading the ball evenly among guys. And we're ball control just like wishbone, but we're throwing it a little bit. We're throwing it short. So, we'll be patient and go out and say, okay, cool. We're struggling with mesh here. Let's run it 3 more times and have 3 incompletions if we need to, just to make sure this is how they're always defending it every time we show it. And each time we do it, we're saying, okay, well, why is it not working? What are they doing here? And then we come up with a tag on the sideline. Or a lot of times our players come over and they're like, well, if I did this, I'm going to be wide open. And I've found over the years that 9 out of 10 times, if any player has a suggestion, it works. So, that's kind of how we line up with it is we're just going to go the base stuff. Then if we need it, if they're stopping mesh, but we're up by 14 points already in the first quarter, there's no need for us to make that adjustment. We'll just run other plays that work. But if we get to a point that now the game's tied in the fourth quarter, we need a big play. Now we know how they cover mesh. We've done the research. We've seen it. So now we're going to attack it and make the big play. So all of our adjustments and things like that are more in game, where I think most coaches are doing that pre-game by watching film and, coming up with their game plan of, oh, this is how they line up to trips. So if we tag this week, that's going to be a big play. We just say we don't care what they're running. I mean, Hal doesn't even want the quarterbacks to watch any game film all week of the opponent because
that's crazy.
Well, what he always says is you're chasing ghosts because what you're doing is you're getting this idea in your head of what they're going to do. And so many coaching staffs I've been on, I had in 2020, like during the COVID spring 2021, before I went to the spring league, I was already in Indiana. I was at Manchester University and I was the co-offensive coordinator. So I was handling the passing game and we had another coordinator that handled the run game. And, I go in his office and he would just have their film up and he's like, look, if we had a route that did this, this, and this against their trip, against trips, if we run trips, we do this, it's going to kill them. And I just never thought that way because I guess I've been with Coach Mummy so long, because there have been times over the years that I would come up with this idea to, okay, we watch the film, this is going to work. And we practice it all week. Show it to our head coach or whoever. He's excited. It's like, oh, this is going to kill them. Our players are excited. It's killing them. It's killing our scout team that's lined up in the same way of what we just saw all week on film. And we're pumped. Then we get out there and we call that play that we know is going to be a touchdown and we overthrow it or we drop it or it's a bad snap.
Yeah.
Or we come out and we do that and then they never run it again. So it's like, okay, we wasted all this. We spent 10% of our offensive practice, 15% on this play that we ran once and never went back to. Or we line up and they just don't line up in that defense at all. It's a completely different defense. And everything we do all week to attack what they do is completely different. And, we get a lot.
And I'll tell you, Coach, to piggyback on that, not to cut you off, but like to piggyback on that, like obviously I grew up playing in high school in a run and shoot offense. Like we were 4 wide from the time I was in 6th grade. Like this is what we learned. And the one thing that was always a staple was, hey, we're going to do what we do regardless of what they do. Because one, we're the simplicity of it. Like, I mean, we ran 5 formations in high school, right? It was, it was 2x2, it was 3x1, it was empty. Like that was it. That's all we ran. And that's just how we rocked. And it was, these are the concepts, these are the plays, this is what we're doing. We would get the structure of a defense, mainly, 1 high, 2 high. These plays are going to work better, but that was it. We never were out there like, oh, well, when they do this, we do that, or and that was one of the biggest things for me moving on, playing different places for different programs, and now having coached for 16 years. I think, especially in high school, so many guys spend so much time worrying about what the other team is doing and how they're going to structure it and what they're doing. We do this and all those other things. And this is high school football. So even when you're expecting the other team to do this, you're going out there and it's not even close. And then you got guys looking around like, well, coach, you said he'd be here. He's not, right? So I think the guys that keep it simple and focus more so on what they do, because ultimately what you do is what you can control. You can't control what the other side of the ball does. And now, guys they'll try anything. You're seeing so many different structures of defense and how guys want to play this. And, the adaptation of the 3 safety defense that everybody's seeing. Everybody has those rovers, those tweener type guys that are, can come down in the box and come off the edge, or they can, drop back in coverage or lock up, right? Like it's almost like everybody has more DBs on the field now. So, I mean, you could look at it, most structures, and see it's a 3-1 box. There's a 4-man box. Like they're daring you to run the ball more. It's just, for me, the simplicity of the run and shoot specifically, right? And these spread systems of, if you just focus on what you do, rep it over and over and over, you'll be so far ahead rather than sit there and try and, literally dissect a defense. He's in a 1, he's in a 3, this guy's going to come this way, or he's going to drop here, or it's just worry about you, man. You can control it. And that's how, then you can increase your tempos and all those types of things. And that's before you even throw any type of motion at them, because that, we know what that does. I mean, especially in high school. Are you kidding? Like you throw somebody and motion them to the other side, you're talking pure chaos. So yes. I really think that focus point, it's awesome. That's really cool to hear. Like, even at the next levels, in the highest levels of ball, guys are saying, let's worry about us, not the structure of what's going on over there.
When we were in the spring league, our whole league was on Huddle, and Mummy never even had an account on Huddle.
Dave, can you imagine that? Like that's like to grasp that, right? Like it's I'm telling you, it's the same with Leach, right? Like Leach used to be the same type of way. Like, dude, we're gonna do what we do. We're gonna do it really, really, really well, and we're gonna have the timing and have the rhythm and all those things that you can do whatever you want over there. But this is what we're doing, and we can control this. That's what I've always loved about that offense. It's something that I'm always the black sheep in the room when I'm like, God, what are you doing? Just run what we run. We should be good enough to do that. Now, obviously, look, talent helps, right? Like players help that aspect of it. But for the most part, especially with a high school offense, when guys can get where they're supposed to be and the quarterback knows he's going to be there, I mean, it can make average talent look really good, and you can be highly successful, at the high school level, just knowing what's going on and repping it and being on the same page with everybody.
Yeah. I mean, the funny thing about it is still, like, in 2025, in this day and age of, the most extreme offenses and RPOs and things like that, passing, it's only polarizing if you're a pass-heavy team when you say we do what we do. Because if you're a wing T team, you do what you do. If you're a double wing or a wishbone or, whatever, you're doing what you do. Or you're just the teams that line up in, base spread and run inside zone. You're
Yep.
going to do that. Or power shit. You talk to any lineman, it's like, we're power. There's one thing, our bread and butter, we're going to run power no matter what. So it's like, it's really not that much different of a mindset. The only thing that makes it extreme is that we're doing it throwing the football.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's an incredible, obviously, system. I'm mind blown by the fact that you don't watch. He doesn't need to watch huddle. And so it's the reaction off of everything what their uh, what people are lining up on and being able to do that on the fly is amazing. I guess that allows you guys to counter everything without having to put in a bunch of different plays than any defense does. So you're focusing more. If they do this, this is what you're doing. Am I right on that?
Yeah, it's kind of like these triple option teams that do the if then thing. I wouldn't say we haven't necessarily. We've never had sheets for it, but we could come up with the sheet. I mean, we do have, like, for our quick game. We rarely call any of our quick game passes. We just call check, and our quarterbacks have a look of. We have a quick game concept that attacks one. We cut off a little bit there.
You're good.
Okay. Yeah, I saw all of our screens were circling a bit. I think Manny's in there doing work too, so maybe we're using up all of.
When is that guy not doing the work?
Yeah, he works a lot. He definitely works a lot. But shoot, get me back to where we were going. The circles sidetracked me there.
Yeah. So we were saying about adjusting based off of what they're doing, like, and you were saying that you could have a sheet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could. I was talking about the quick game. So, I mean, we have, like, for example, we call open check, and our quarterback lines up. We got a quick game concept that attacks 1, that attacks 2, that attacks 3, that attacks 4. And so when we call check, he just looks at the coverage. He looks at, number of safeties, the depth of the corners. And since 2021, that's how we pretty much called our quick game. We'll call corner down in the red zone, but other than that, it's pretty much letting the QB call it. And that came about in the spring league in 21 because through all my years that I played in Europe, I ran the air raid, but I called it myself. And I always felt, well, I have the best seat in the house to call it, but I'd never really, I guess, put together a system of how I do what I'm doing. And so then that kind of forced me to really figure it out in my head and, like, try to put it out on paper or something. And so when I came up with that with Ryan, I mean, our starting quarterback, he got it down so easily that I've carried it on through the junior college that I coached at after the season, and then, doing it at the high schools or anywhere I've been at since. And it's really simple, and those guys pick it up. And then, with the drop back concepts, we always have something we can do. And usually it comes down to defenses bringing a safety down. They bring a safety down on a route that we don't plan for the safety to be on. And usually the answer to that is just posting over the safety's head. And so I actually had a coach tell me, it was one of my O-line coaches, it was at the JUCO in 2021. It was about game 8. He's like, I think I'm finally getting the air raid. You just run the base plays till the safeties come down, then you post over their head. And I was like, well, yeah, in a nutshell. Maybe that's all I should have answered when you first asked me a bit about each system. Is just air raid, we run the same play, and then we post over your head if you come down with your safety. But that's a big part of what we do.
It's so interesting how the system runs. Now, how fast, how long does it take for you guys to install it, get your players to be running it effectively? Is it easier you found to also install quickly?
Yeah, I mean, we can install the base offense in 3 days. So, and the way we break that up is, one second. Okay. So we break it up into 3. So essentially what we're going to do is we got, quick games. Some years we'll just carry stick and corners, quicks, and then we will tag. Friday's what we call our fade flat, because that, going out. We say on Friday nights you go out, so we like brush our shoulder off as like a signal for it. But like Friday and then our hitch inside fade, we'll just have the quarterback tag that off our 4 verts if he sees leverage. So a lot of years our quick game will just be the 6 tags, and then we'll have stick and corner. So if that's the case, we're going to run. So day 1 would be like our drop back pass that we'll run is 6. Then we'll run our 6 tags as our quick game. And then we'll run mesh to the right side, our base mesh. And then just like our dive or draw play for the run game. And off of that, we'll throw quick screens. So that'll be like our screen for the day is a quick screen. We got the dive. We got mesh to the right. We got 4 verts. And then we got the hitch, or like 5-yard outs off of 4 verts. Then day 2, we carried into like Y stick is quick game. We do mesh to the left. Then we do like the shallow concept. We got a slow screen to the back off of shallow that we do on that day. And then we might run like ISO. And we only run plays to one side. So we run like ISO to the left. And then day 3, we'd run GT counter to the right. And we run Y sail, Y cross. So we consider that our strong and weak side flood corner for the quick game. And then with mesh, we'll tag the post wheel off of the variations that we ran on the first 2 days. And screen will be the only play we have left is surge, which is a double screen with a swing on one side, a jailbreak on the other. And so that's it. So maybe install 1, we're going to do just, take and say we might run 4 verts just out of 2x2. And then when we get back to day 4, we're going to add in 3x1.
Yep.
Day 7 might run it out of empty. And then when we get to day 10, we might do it with motion, or we might be done and just run, like that surge concept. We only run out of open, which is our 2x2, and we only run it one way. So once we do that, like every 3 days, we're just wrapping that base play. There's not like this constant need to add a new formation and add a new variation every single practice or every single week. Like most of the plays, we just run 1 or 2 ways, and that's it anyway.
Have you ever found that like teams that are able to handle and stop it by doing certain things, like you, and then, or is there always an answer for everything you guys do?
I mean, I think I'd say what we've struggled with the most, and I think anybody would, is teams that could drop 7 or 8 and still get pressure with 3 or 4. Teams that their D line is just, but we can't handle their D line. That's easily been the hardest thing. And a lot of people say like, well, how do you handle the blitz? And it's like, we love when they blitz. We absolutely love getting blitz.
Hell yeah.
We can, you go cover 0, I'm probably throwing 4 verts every single play. Or I'm probably lining up an empty and going 5 verts if you go cover 0, because, and I think that's something that's maybe a little bit different mindset, because most people are like, well, how can you cover verticals? Or how can you pass protect verticals if they're sending all those people? And the thing is, verticals, I know where they're going. They're all going a straight line.
Yep.
So it's not hard to just catch the ball and throw it on that straight line. If it's any route where even a 5-yard out, I have to wait for a break. The fastest route to throw outside of a quick screen is vertical, because you know exactly where they're going.
Right.
So pick your
And they
destination
throw a
up.
back shoulder. So if they feel a guy's playing them well, they throw a back shoulder. If they feel like they can beat the guy to lead them down the field, that type of thing.
Yeah. I mean, our verts, and I think verts is the best play in football, because you attack vertical, but you also attack the whole like width of the field as well. And the way we do it with our outside guys, if we're running out of 2x2, well, if we run it out of anything, but if we're just saying 2x2 as a whole, both of our outside guys, they're forcing an outside release if they got the corner down on them. Outside release, they want to try to stack them, beat them deep. If they can't beat them deep, they're going to actually slow down and keep their shoulder. They might be running their vertical at 9% speed. They want their inside shoulder right behind the defender's shoulder that's covering them. That opens up the back shoulder throw. Now, if the defender's off and his own, how we read it is man or zone turn. If the cornerback turns towards the receiver when we outside release, that's a man turn. So it's beat them deep or look for the back shoulder. If the defender turns inside and bails, that's a zone turn. And what we want to do is get to their blind spot, which is usually around 10 to 12 yards. And we always say the blind spot is if the corner's eyes are looking, if the receiver's back behind me here, corner's eyes are dropping back looking at the quarterback. When you can't see his eye, he can't see you. So that's when we're just going to open up and fall out. So we don't do comebacks. We like to fall out where our eyes stay on the quarterback and the ball at all times. So timing doesn't have to be perfect and the throw doesn't have to be perfect. We don't turn around and we're like just surprised, where's the ball at? We see it the entire time. So that's kind of our rule there. Or if when we get to 10, if the corner's 15 yards or more, would fall out as well. Now on the inside, if it's one high safety, we're just outside releasing, stacking, winning deep. If it's two high safeties, we're outside releasing the backer. And the way we read it in air raid is we read it straight across the field. So weak side to strong side, 2 by 2, the back's on the right. So it'd be X, H, Y, Z, straight across the field. And so the second read, the H, after he outside releases and stacks, he's look at that safety's bailed over top of him. You know, he's just going to set it to the 10.
Yeah, set it right down there.
He rolls, he'll keep going. Now, what we do with the third receiver, the Y, he's going to outside release. And if he's got a safety over him, he's going to bend it across his face.
Yep.
So what we end up getting there is if I drop back as a quarterback, and we teach the old school, if I'm reading on the left first, we backpedal. So I catch it, I'm backpedaling back, I'm looking at X. Now, if he's not there, I just look over at H.
Yep. It's just your progression right across the field. Like you're reading a friggin' book, man. Like,
yeah. And instead of like turning my back with a drop, looking over my shoulder at X and stuff, I kind of see
you see it all.
So I'll say X, no. I go to H, and let's say they're too high and they build. If he's built far enough, I just know the H there at 10 yards. If I get my eyes on H and that safety comes down, now I know I have the Y posting over that safety's head, and now we get a shot play. And so that's kind of like what we're looking at, where the difference with, say, how they do it in the run and shoot before verticals is you have a call side, you half roll to it. That side's pretty much locked in on verticals. And then backside is going to have some adjustments, or they can run the switch tag with adjustments off of that.
DZR, buddy, downfield zone rule. Like that's literally lived it my entire life. We used to run what was called a DZR, that backside or that third inside receiver would always have that if that safety stayed over the top, you'd like sit down right there, find green grass, right? Like now you're open, like a QB knows that. And if that safety wanted to cheat, then boom, you would stay right on that seam and you were just out. I mean, and the half roll really in the run and shoot, especially for like where I came from, where, we rarely had a quarterback over 5'8", right? So you would half roll just so basically you could kind of see over the line, right? And that was kind of part of it too. But we also had, some more athletic guys that where once you got on that edge, just creating that half roll would move and pull defenses a certain direction right away. And now, as you're reading it, going to that, the main side, right? Because when we would call plays, it was, formation, direction, play. 3 words. That's all it was, right? Simple as that. I get into some of these systems and the verbiage, like, holy hell, dude. Like, we're talking like John Gruden out there, like every position gets a call. Just that aspect of it was wild. And then when you see that, when your receivers, when you get to that level that, because every receiver just thinks that, hey, this is what we call, this is what you run. So if I'm running a vertical and the corner is 10 yards over top of me, I just keep running to him. Well, that's not very smart. Like, what are we doing? Sit that thing down and understand, like, here's my window. You're on the same page with the quarterback. Boom, ball's out, and now we're good to go. That's what I always loved about the system, was that there was things that you had to do within a play based off what you were seeing. Right? Now way defenses move so much, right? Like those safeties are your tells, man. When that, they might look for, I mean, it's even the way that our system now that look, we just had day one yesterday, install our defense. Like, look, the install is based on the premise that we are in a too high shell every single snap to make it look the same so that you have no idea what we're doing. I'm all jazzed. I love it because like it's offense day one and I'm going through our install and I'm laughing because it's stick corner, right? Like we're installing all this stuff day one out of 2x2s and that's it. That's all we're doing. It's two plays. It's a run play. It's very simple and then just repeat to kind of roll with it. And for high school guys, like now they're getting exactly what they need to do, too much, but like enough to be able to understand once all of this happens, now we can tag. Now we can do this. Right? Like it's got to come from some foundational points. I think that's the most important part of an install is get your foundation set and understand that, guys, we're going to do this every single time we line up so that they get it and you can rep through it.
Yeah, see, I mean, I stopped running a couple of years ago. I pretty much stopped running quick game out of 3x1.
Right.
I was doing a consultation I was at Henrico High School in Richmond, Virginia. And I was just, I got to think because I was up on the whiteboard going over all of our 3x1, looking at cut-ups. And like our 3x1 quick game, what I looked at was we had been something like, I had an idea. I went back to the hotel and I started looking at that, like after working with them that night. And I saw like, okay, I am over like 3 or 4 years of self-scout, 3 or 4 of the last seasons I've been at, I coached. I looked and we were something like 70% on quick game, averaging like 8.5 per completion or something out of 3x1, which shit, that's good. Should mean if we run 3 quick games in a row, we should get a first down every time statistically. But then I look back and because what I saw was like, okay, pretty much all of our quick games predicated on this: run one guy off, and then you got 2-on-1 on someone else. So if we're running stick out of 3x1, the fade runs off the corner, and now we're reading the Sam. Is he going out to the flat or is he covering the stick? Almost all, and if they're body for body, 3-man across on there, we're probably not going to throw that quick game anyway. We're probably going to go backside or check it unless they're maybe pressing number one and we say, well, we can throw up a fade. So what I just kind of saw as I looked over all of our quick game is all of it's predicated on running one man off and then reading one guy and having 2-on-1. And I just got the thought, well, let's look at our quick screens out of 3x1. And when I looked at that over those same 3 or 4 seasons, we were something like 89 or 90%. And we were averaging like 8.8 per quick screen. So we were averaging more yards and completing 90%. And so I was like, well, what if we just took all that time that we're running, practicing stick and corner and all of these concepts out of 3x1, and we just worked at getting better on screen blocking. And now we can get in cross blocks and different things like that, folds and all these different looks. And we still can, the more we throw those screens, the more they're going to come down, and we can still, what we call fox off of it, pump it, and then throw vertical. So that still gives that a chance for a shot downfield. But that's kind of how we've done it. And now, instead of when I talk about different formations and variations, now if we're running stick or corner, it's always number 3 is always coming out of the backfield instead of being in trips. So we get that same look every single time in quick game, and we just get maximum reps on it. And then we can just practice our, being a lot better at blocking quick screens and have a lot of true completions. And we don't even really have to call a play on that because we can just call that. That can be off of our run play. And then with the single receiver, we always give the quarterback freedom that he can tag any route to the single receiver when we're running quick game too. So, or when we're calling run plays, he can tag anything to that single receiver. So if they're off, he can just give them a hitch or an out route or press, maybe a fade, just catch it, put it up.
It's that's interesting because I used to love 3-by-1 quick game and throwing it to the backside like on slants and stuff like that. Especially in high school, if you got a good guy one-on-one match, you can get them open all the time. But I guess you have more of the variable of the QB missing, or if the guy's playing them tight, or where screen is high likelihood of obviously being completed, and having more blockers out in space, almost using it like a run play that gains a lot of yards, basically.
Yep,
100%. Right? It's like a run play that gains a lot of yards because you have so many more blockers at the point of attack, right? Whereas if you're running power, you don't actually have as many blockers at the point of attack unless you're using some sort of option game with it, and that requires more time, right? That requires more time to teach. Whereas the screen really, I mean, you can get bulls on parade and get them moving pretty easily.
And you can rep it, Dave.
And you can
that's a segment. That's like a segment in practice that you could install and be like, all right, we're screen. Hey, we're throwing this over here. We're throwing this to this side. And you know how it's practice. You want as many guys doing as much stuff as you possibly can. You can roll bodies through on that. And like you said, most QBs can make those throws. It's the other ones that take more time and through development, right? But if you could teach a guy to throw screens, like it's a nice, comfortable, you know what I mean? Like gives them a little bit of confidence because it's probably going to be a completion. What that guy does with it after the fact is him. But if you rep it, and Dave, look, I coached with you. Like one of the things that it's always about is like as a receiver, you got to be able to block downfield. It's one of the most underrated aspects. Anything that where if we can get good body on body and some good contact, like now, a 5-yard gain turns into a 25-yard gain, or we're houseworking stuff. And those, like, it's an easy way to build that confidence into the pass game when you have receivers that can get downfield and stalk and block and move guys out of the way. And it's also good for your guys that are catching the ball on screen to understand, hey, my receiver is going to do this. I have to learn, how do I make that cut off of this? Or we're trying to get them this way, but understand space and all those types of things. It's so important. It's something I've always stressed because it was stressed to me. And, personally, I loved blocking on the edge. Like it was so fun to get out there and body up some guys and, catch guys at some angles because they're not expecting you, they're expecting you to get out there and, basically play basketball, just kind of stay in front, right? And do all that. When you can get into a guy on the edge, man, like there's not like that. That's one of the best feelings ever.
Well, and I'll tell you something else that, when you get your guys good at blocking, something I've been doing for a few years now is if we run, say, hitch an inside fade or fade flat, we call that our outside quick game. That's meaning we're reading the cornerback.
Right.
So both receivers know we're reading the corner when we run that. They both know the corner's read. So if we're running, let's say hitch inside fade, we prefer to run that against cover 3. Right? That would be the look we'd prefer to have if we're running hitch and inside fade. So if I've got the hitch here running his hitch, and then I've got the inside fade coming over top, what I started teaching with that inside fade is I want you to run. Our hitch goes to, we don't want him deeper than 5 yards on the hitch. It's a 3-step hitch. So if he runs his hitch, we have the inside fade guy line up within 5 yards of him. And then he runs a straight line directly over his head, right over the hitch's head at 7 yards. So he's sprinting straight to 7, and then he's going to snap his head around on the seam. So what happens with that cover 3 corner is he's going to do one of two things. He's either going to bail into his zone, or he's going to try to come down. He'd have to come inside of that inside fade to come
squeeze.
Yeah. So if he comes inside of the inside fade with no safety help, with it being a 1 high, we have a shot right there to hit, at 15 yards. We just pop it on the inside fade. Now, if the corner bails, you'll see our inside fade. He'll never even turn his head to look for the ball. He'll just get right over that hitch and stalk block. So we're hitting a screen 5 yards downfield. By the time we've caught, we've already caught the ball by the time he's stalk blocking. But that turns these hitches into where most would just be, okay, I run my inside fade. We threw the hitch. Now I keep running my fade, and corner comes down to try to make the play.
Makes the play. Right.
Now we're going to block it. Same thing with the fade flat. We go the fade flat. We're running out. Oh, the corner bailed. The fade's never even going to look for the ball. He's just going to go stalk blocking. And so we're kind of
awesome.
finding ways to hit screens legally
Downfield.
yards downfield.
And don't matter. The linemen are going to be downfield anyway. Nobody calls that shit.
No, not with us. Our linemen are going to be backpedaling 4 yards back.
Yeah, the accordion splits that are out there. You got like 3 yards between each guy. It's been that stuff was always really great. Like with the linemen and stuff, the athleticism that it takes to be an offensive lineman within that system. Defensive guy, you see it though, like with all these RPOs and stuff, like, hey, well, they can kind of be in this window. There, you could call linemen downfield every single time somebody does what it's like. That's just what they do. They just wander and mosey and all this other kind of stuff. It's really interesting, Coach, how you're trying to execute that in terms of like, hey man, just go get your guy. Like you already know where the ball is going to go, and if it doesn't, that's not on you. That's on where it's coming from. So go get ahead of schedule and get your job done. Yeah. Without having to worry about all the other stuff. I think that's a real interesting type of like. That's really cool to think about.
Well, and there's a key that you can really eliminate the quarterback making the wrong read on that. So with how I just said hitch inside fade, the general thought process would be, okay, read the corner. If he bails, throw the hitch. If he comes down, throw the inside fade. Or let's say we're running stick. We read the Sam, right? If he runs out to cover the flat route, he runs out what we call a shoot. He runs out to cover the back. You throw the stick. If he stays on the stick, you throw the back. See, what I've done is I call it accelerators with our guys. And I just say, if it's hitch, quarterback, you are catching and ripping the hitch out like it's a quick screen. You're throwing the hitch unless the corner takes it away. So the hitch is going to get there sooner. And I'm telling the quarterback, I always want it to be the hitch. But if he takes it away, we'll reset our feet and throw behind him. On stick, we're throwing the shoot unless the Sam takes it away. And then we're going to reset and throw the stick back behind it. So what happens is that secondary route is getting there at the same amount of time it would if we were just reading the defender. But that first route's getting out there considerably faster because I'm just catching and ripping. So, and by emphasizing that, we have way less error too, because guys know he's getting the ball unless this guy's doing this. And we even carry that over like to shallow because so many quarterbacks love throwing that dig. Hell, I played quarterback. It's a fun throw to make to fit it in there on the dig.
Yeah.
But we call shallow to throw the shallow. We want to throw the shallow. So in the past, it was read the sand. So we're reading the defender over the dig. You don't want to telegraph that shallow coming across, looking at him and throw it to him. You'll get his head knocked off. So I'm staring at the defender over the dig. And, we'd always say mandatory outside release the dig. If the Sam turns with you, it's a man look. So you'll run him to 10, sink your hips, push him by you, haul ass across on the dig. But the quarterback's probably going to hit his thinking that man turns to run, we're hitting the shallow. If that defender just kind of, pushes off and stays in his zone, now we're looking to hit the dig. But what I'd find is a lot of times that Sam would drop back on that dig to 8 or 9 yards. And then, he would come, but he would keep his shoulder square. Then he'd come down on the shallow. But our quarterbacks would just say like, oh, it's zone. He never turned his shoulders. So I'm going to throw the dig. And so like now that Sam kind of squeezes with that mic and it makes it a really tight window. But if you're saying throw the shallow unless the Sam takes it away, even if he's in zone and if he's dropped back to 8 or 9 yards, the shallow's at 1 yard and he's on a full sprint. So by the time he's caught it and keeps continuing out to the numbers, he's way outside of that Sam regardless. So that's something that we kind of that we've been doing for the last, I'd say for myself as a play caller and running the offense, that's kind of what I've really got to is just the biggest difference of anything I've done in my, 18 years or so of calling offense is gotten to the point of these accelerators for the quarterback. And just where they kind of they know who they're throwing to unless it's taken away. And most of the time, if we're calling a concept, we're calling it because we think it's going to be there. So I want him to throw where I think, but that's another thing that I do is there's a constant communication from the sideline with the quarterback, because I always hear, I can remember in the past being on like the sideline and maybe we call a certain play and I'd be beside another coach and be like, man, if he sees this route,
we're good.
we'll be like, Timmy's going to be wide open. If he sees it, we're going to have a touchdown. Come on, throw it to Timmy. That's kind of shitty coaching. Wouldn't it be better to be like, hey, quarterback, throw the ball to Timmy right now. We're going to get a touchdown. So what I typically do as a play caller is I've got a constant back and forth with my quarterback. We're communicating for the most part non-verbally. But, I'll tell the quarterback will do it. I can pull up, say, any game from last year. We had a sophomore quarterback, a young kid. About 25 times a game, you'll see him look over at me and tap the side of his head with his finger saying, what are you thinking? And I might just give him a signal to go through the progression. I might tell him, I'm thinking the Y is going to be open. And so that means I want you to go through the progression, but I'm expecting the Y to be open. Or I could tell him, throw the Y right now. Forget progression. Or, that most common would happen, like if we were running let's say we're running 4 verts and we got a backer that's a total mismatch against, like, say, the H receiver or something. Or there's no safety help and there's a huge mismatch between the outside receiver and the corner and they're pressing. And I'm like, okay, I know we can hit this now. So I'll just tell him now. I tell you now, you throw it and it's a pick, all on me.
Right.
But, there's that just constant, or my quarterback can look over at me and he can like kind of cut his throat saying, hey.
Yeah. Like, oh, shit.
And in the past, what I do if he did that is I would say, like, okay, well, what's another good play? And I would send him a play real quick. But what I've found over time is if he gives me this, he already sees something that he wants. And so before where, he'd do this and then I'd give him like, oh, okay, open 6, so for verts. Now I just point back at him and almost every time, they just turn and they run and call a play. And usually it's a pretty good play.
It's interesting because it's like compared to like the end zone and the thought process of it, it's a slightly different thought process with the air raid than the end zone because they rely so much more on these RPOs and those kind of things. It's really, really interesting because that's the two, like, and obviously there's principles that overlap and stuff like that, but those are the two, like, kind of like styles of offenses you see a ton of stuff from, right? Even if it's just packages, people are using those two types of systems, but they're different. There's a lot of things that look similar, but like they're different in the way that you execute it, the different way that you think about it from a quarterback standpoint.
Absolutely. It's the same on paper. It's the same.
Yeah, it looks similar.
Lines are drawn the same way for the most part, but
for the most part, right?
How you teach it, how you coach it, completely different.
Yes.
100%.
And because I always thought the one limitation of the end zone was if you could go man and get after people, which is the opposite of what you guys want them to get after you. The end zone, if someone can get after them, they have a hard time because you're matching up across the board and the way their reads go. It creates a problem. The quarterback starts getting hit a lot. You know what I mean? Because RPO, because of the heavy RPO component to it. And if guys start missing on reads, you know what I mean, or missing on blocks, they're in a lot of trouble. Whereas you're welcoming in that because the system that you use from a read standpoint is kind of taking away some of that component to it, such a hard, heavy read part that the end zone has. I don't know. That's just kind of my thoughts. I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I can't talk too much on the end zone. I remember seeing some material on it before, and I remember, like I was like, okay, well, this is basically what we do, but it's, instead of shallow, it's shack and
right,
different terminology. So I mean, I can't speak a whole lot on like what they do, but yeah, with what we do, it's very, our quick game is pretty much based on that inside and stick and corner. We call that our inside quick game.
Right.
So with that, pretty much, if the cornerback's down, we read, and if you look at stick and corner, they're the same play. On both of them, we have the back running a shoot route.
Yep.
The stick and
Yep.
the stick and the snag end up in the same spot. The corner and the fade end up in the same spot.
I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah. So for us, it's a thought process really of, and always we would say it like, okay, the only time we consider the fade on stick is if they were pressing. Otherwise, we're just making that read off the sand.
You know what's harder in the end zone with the corner versus your fade, which is I like what's interesting about your fade, is that
I love the inside fade.
You could throw it now, right? Like the corner, you talked about it earlier. You're waiting for the break on things, right? That if he hasn't broken and that ball's gone, like let's say quarterback's under some heat, right? And he gets rid of it now. He knows the corner's there, but he hasn't broken. That's a pick, right? Like, am I wrong? Or, you know what I mean? Whereas on the fade, just because of the angle of attack, and that's what I think is interesting about the way you present it, the angle of attack, that the ball could be gone, but the receiver knows already based off of what they're aligned on, that it's coming, right?
Yeah.
So there's nothing the guy who's running the corner can do because he's still going through his process. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah. So the way we have that right is one thing we do on corner, and I've seen even Leach, which they called 8, and for them where we call 62 corner, they call it 8, and it's something funny if you guys are on that. I can tell you where all this whole terminology of 618 and all of that came from. That was one of the first things I asked Mommy. And it's really cool stories how the terminology came about. And pretty much the 617, 618, 619 came because they had a quarterback that was so country that nobody could understand what he was saying. And when he'd say 68 or 69, so they added the teen to make it easier to hear.
That's funny.
For example.
He had a little too much twang in his verbiage.
Yeah, if memory serves correct, I believe it was Chris Hatcher, which would make sense. Hatcher is a very.
I mean, look, I asked the same question because, to be honest, like this will be my first year in an air raid system, so stick, corner, out, like those type the plays, I got that and the concepts 100%. But my thing was, well, why are we calling 61 or why are we calling 92 or 91 and the way we're doing it, I guess, is 6s are more quick game, 9s are more of a drop back, I guess, opportunity. Even for me, like letter wise, like you know what I mean. Like I'm learning, XHYZ. We were always AYZ, or you know what I mean. The back is always a different letter and all that kind of shit. And for us, it was doubles was even, right? And then we had rip and load. And I mean, look, I can go to a game,
rip and load,
my alma mater, rip and load, baby. Like I can go to a game at my alma mater, sit in the stands, watch the signaler, and know exactly what we're running. And people still laugh at me. I'm like, this shit hasn't changed in 20 years, buddy. Yeah, look. And I'm the signaler this year. So I literally spent yesterday in the office, with the OC and we're going through the signals and it's hilarious, because it is funny. That's what I wanted to ask you about that. In the league that you're in now with Coach Matsakis, like, do you guys have in-helmet communication or is it signals? Is it wristbands? Is it, how are you calling the plays? Signals?
All hand signals. And just
because that's a big thing. I mean, even Texas, they just, the Texas High School Association just approved in-game technology. So I don't know if you've seen anything about the company Go Route, that now it's basically, your iPhone on a belt and you can literally send the play, like the picture of the play in. So we use them for practice. It's amazing. I know you.
I like it for Scout D. I like it for Scout
100%. 100%.
Other than that, like
no more running back to the huddle. Look at the card. Do you know what you're doing? No, stay in your spot. Like we can now. It's picked up it's added us almost. I mean, I did the numbers on it last year. It saved us almost 30 minutes in practice of just transitioning from play to play to play. It's allowed us to get more plays in practice. Dave utilizes hit. He's got him this year. He's going to utilize them with his 10-year-olds. Like, I mean, game changer in that facet. But Texas has now approved it to use it in game. Mm-hmm. Those guys are going to be standing out there with, Go Route has come up with a new version, which is like an Apple, and it's going to be on their wrists. Because apparently, one of the final, hey, this is why we're doing this. In the Texas State Finals, they literally threw people out of AT&T Stadium because guys were stealing signs and doing all this type of jive. So it's. I mean, Go Route's making a lot of money in Texas right now. I'll tell you that much. And we got a guy coming on from Go Route in a couple weeks, which I'm about to talk to him. But how do you see that working? Like the communication, is it still like for you guys? Obviously, it's hand signals, and that hand signals across the board in terms of like all 11 are looking to the sideline, or are certain guys looking at certain guys as you go through? Like, how do you kind of work that?
In both,
I mean, you don't have to give away all your secrets, but
well, both air raid and run and shoot here for the most part. What we do is we signal to the skill guys, and then the quarterback communicates with the offensive line. And so he communicates verbally with the offensive line. And I've just found that works best for the most part. And what Hal always says is, as far as stealing signals and shit like that, is just that he says that we give defenses too much credit. He's like, you give those defensive coaches too much credit. He's like, even if the ones on the sideline see what your signals are, the players still have to get lined up and defend it. And
correct.
There's just not a lot of time for them to line up, say, hey, they're going to do this and watch this and this. And even if they do that, again, like,
right, your tempo should eliminate that.
Well, and let's say that, like, White Cross, for example, if they're getting our signal, which for us it'd just be something like we'd have a signal for like 90 or something. So like 90.
I mean, 90. Why? Cross. Yeah. I've been going all day. Wife's been calling plays for days. Yeah, man.
So we just say, blue 95. So if we call blue 95 and they're seeing that and they're like, watch the cross. We're not going to say, hey, blue 95 Z post. What we're going to do is we're just going to, on the sideline now, because we've seen that how they're stopping cross, we're going to say, hey, next time we call 95, you run a post. And now it's cool. Still our signal. We're going to throw a touchdown on you because you stole our signal. Or next time,
and because you think you're gaining an advantage, we can kind of like, yeah.
Hey, we're going to go out this drive, and when we call, say, 35. When we call 35, which would be like ISO to the left, we'll say next time we call 35, let's treat it as 85, which is fake 35 running wide cross. So we'll give the signals, and if they want to cheat the signal, we're just going to make them pay. And when you run such a small playbook, you can do those things. And I do want to bounce back because Coach Schumann asked like long ago when we were talking about stick and corner and how we read the plays and stuff, and we kind of got off on tangents, which I tend to do.
That's my fault. ADHD.
It is yours on this one, and I just didn't want to blame you being, your guys.
No, I got you, brother. Like shit, you're dealing with. There's a lot of medicine, and it ain't fixing it, so we're good.
But yeah, to touch so our quick game is pretty much based on reading one defender. Inside quick game is stick and corner, reading the Sam. The pre-snap would be that fade to the Z, or a difference between, I think how Mazzoni ran corner, but I know how Leach ran it is they would run it a 10-yard corner route. That's, in my mind, that's way too long for a quick game. So
10 yards for a quick. Oh, hell yeah.
You see, we go 4 steps, which is comes out to about 6 yards, a 6-yard corner. But what we tell our quarterback is, and this goes back to that accelerators, if the corner is off, we cut the corner route out of the progression and we just read it shoot to snag. Right, because if the corner's off, we're going to be running right to him anyway.
Right.
So,
you already know.
Yeah, so our quick game pretty much, the way we work that out, that becomes a catch and throw to this guy unless they take it away, throw to this other guy. And then obviously with the backside slants, it's pretty much the inside slant. We'll only look to him if we get a blitz. And so he's our hot if we get a blitz. Or let's say we're running stick. And what they do is they start to play that Sam a little bit outside. If they see our back cheat up, and that's another thing we give away, our back will cheat up when we're on stick. If they see that back cheat up, they might move that Sam a little bit over outside where he can get down on the flat, and then they'll pull the mic over, like maybe over the right guard.
Right.
If they give that look and that's their adjustment to stick, we'll just run it the first time or whatever. And then the quarterback the next time will say, okay, the back cheated up behind the tackle, the mic cheated over. Now there's all this vacated. Catch it, rip that slant, rip that backside slant. And no, we try not to run it. Manny,
I know QBs that you can
Manny fight a lot right now on the sideline because we'll be up by like 35 mid-second quarter, and he just wants to run veer and get out of there. And I'm like begging him to throw deep constantly. So
hey, get used to that argument on the sideline, buddy. It's in the family. It's in the Matsakis blood, dude. Like, you know, you ain't. I'm sorry. Like, you could push and go, but they're stubborn Greeks, brother. Like, that's just they're gonna do what they want to do. That's it.
He's got a lot more class than I do, I guess. I've been with Hal too long.
I think he'll attest to this. That might be something that's come with his age, right? Like, I think that's back at the beginning of that career. I don't know if it's that same way. And sure as hell, I don't know if his brothers have adopted that aspect of it, especially, you know, his brother Jimmy, but that's for sure. Listen, it's an awesome thing like that. It's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to throw it deep, but just throw it. Let's get more passing yards.
Yeah. Well, you're a quarterback, man. You constantly want to get that thing and go. As a running back, I was a wide out. Like, you're getting three perspectives here, you know, guys, that you can see it all kind of come to fruition. Dave, what do you think about, like, you know what I mean? Like, having been a running back, like, you know, to ask you, like, how would you feel playing in some of these air raid systems or run and shoot systems, you know, in terms of being the back? Do you think you would have still been a running back, or do you think you would have been more of a slot receiver aspect of it?
Well, if it was going back to when, like, I was high school, I'd probably been a quarterback, honestly.
Yeah,
because I could have. I mean, I could throw and all that stuff. I mean, the high school I went to, I threw the bomb passes on a pitch pass because we had nobody that had an arm. So I went to small high school. So, in today's, we're going back to the 90s where you were in the I or you were in some form of like some power offense. So the tailback. The quarterback was, at least where I went to high school, the quarterback was more job was to get the ball to the running back. You know what I mean? So where systems have evolved where that would have been eliminated. Now you wouldn't have that exchange and just go to the quarterback and have him make the reads. And then if not, he could run, So that's probably what would be the case if it was if I was in today's world. But I think what's interesting is I think as a former running back, the movements of the way I look at it, the movements of the defense in this system creates big opportunities, especially with any like GT counter plays or it creates huge opportunities for the run game. Because guys will overplay their hand based off of what they think you're doing, and like what Coach said, where, we coached together, me Derek, for 2 years, but I used to have a lot of this where I was at one place for 8 years. We used to use words or single, and people would, a player might learn a word from another team, right, and he would. Maybe a kid that was smart would identify a play. As soon as the kids told me that they identified a play, I just used the same words. And then I had a word for either read for the quarterback or fake, instead of running it, passing it. And we had our concepts automatically off of it. So you're 100% right. Like, we would just get guys. Great. The call for sweep. You know what I mean? Like, great. Everyone's running in one direction. The ball's going in a different one. So, I think that's the beauty of the system where you could do like what you have tweaks built in that allows you when someone thinks they tip off on it. And the second I've noticed I'm sure it's the same thing with college athletes and high school athletes, and maybe even some of the guys that aren't at the NFL level where they aren't getting paid as much to invest, but maybe even there it works too, is that the second they they realized they were wrong. They thought they had it tipped off, and they were wrong. They don't open their mouth the rest of the game. So
Yeah.
you know,
No.
especially cornerbacks, right? Because they're right near the signal guy, and they like to look right over. They like to look over and try to figure it out because they have time. Because the play has to go in, and they can just look at the signal caller the whole time, and especially to that side, right? And so as soon as you get those, they think they know it, they communicate it, and then they're wrong, and everybody turns around and is like, dude, you were wrong. That dude doesn't say anything the rest of the game, right? Am I right, Coach? He doesn't say anything.
100%.
Yeah, when we were in the spring league, it was our last regular season game before the championship. Our first play, we ran outlaw, which is this empty concept that I came up with in Germany in 2008 when I was going all empty, and I just wanted a little bit more quick game than what we had. So we get out there and we give the signal for outlaw, which is kind of like giving yourself up there, and the corner jumps down and breaks it up. And he yells, he's like, I know y'all signals. In the very next play, we called hitch, and he jumped the hitch, and we hit the inside fade back behind him for like 25 yards.
Yeah.
Yeah, he never said
Like,
another
well,
word the rest of the game.
you missed that one, buddy. You missed that one.
I mean, he was right. He just, he was correct. He had it down, but it didn't work out.
Defensive players think what I've noticed. The defensive players, the way they're taught defense, is like it's if you do this or that all the time, right? This happens or that happens, and it's very because I played I was a linebacker in college and hadn't played offense before, so I started out on the offensive, and I realized that defensive players they only know this or that.
Mm-hmm.
All of them, they know this or that. So if they think they figure out this, right, they think they're ahead of the game. But then there's still that and that and that can happen to them, and they don't think about it in that way. You know what I mean? Like defensive players rarely, even at the highest levels, they don't think about it in that way because most of them have played defense for such a long. They haven't been on offense for a long time. Since high school.
Yeah.
And they haven't played since a long time, so their thought process becomes that way, and that's how you can get them over and over again. And that's why they have to really. That's why defensive players really have to learn to be able to read and react. Because if they don't, if they try to be the offensive coordinator and figure things out, that's how they get burnt. Because offensive coordinators pick that up, and they good ones at least take it to them. And that's why they really have to learn to read and react because, it's a very rare defensive player, and they're probably most of those guys end up going to the Hall of Fame that are that good that they're diagnosing, half of the plays, right? And that's when it really becomes a true chess match. But there's not that many of those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not that many Ed Reeds or Ray Lewises out there, right? That can figure that thing out from the jump, and kind of get a beat on it.
And they played so long too. That's what helped them. I mean, when you're 7
of course,
pros,
you've seen everything, right? Like you've seen it.
You've seen every offensive coordinator because they just rotate around. They get fired and they go somewhere else. So you've seen all these guys. So when you get to the 7th and 8th year, you're like, okay, this guy does this. This guy does this.
Yeah.
Like I know about half of their base stuff by that point, and you got a database of it. But almost nobody's in that situation outside of those guys. So it's very few of those individuals. That's why I said those guys are the guys that end up going to the Hall of Fame because they not only were really good before they knew anything, now they're older and they know a good amount of the things that are going to happen out in the field, which makes them very dangerous until they all of a sudden get old and slow. But yeah, I think that's what makes football so great is that invariable chess match. Like you as the offensive coordinator have to be like, okay, they got some smart guys over there. We got to be on our P's and Q's. You know what? These guys are not. Like we're going to be able to have a field day out here, and that over time. Although where you guys are in, you're probably having a lot more new players all the time. So for the most part, they're not going to know anything that you guys are doing. At least in the first year, right? So.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like the high school that I've been. This year will be my third fall at the high school. It's in East Tennessee, and year one we had a lot of seniors and a couple of really, like we had a junior that's He graduated in December of last year and he's at Colorado with Prime. So he graduated early, went out there. But I mean, we had
Nice.
we had about 20 seniors on our roster on a team of about 45 guys.
Wow.
And we had the best year that the school's had in a long time. We led all of Tennessee in passing all classifications. And then last year we had, I think on both sides of the ball combined, we had 2 starters, 2 guys that had ever started a game on varsity and only like 4 that had ever played a snap on varsity. And our JV team was coming off of an 0-5 season. And so we're starting all those JV guys in arguably the toughest conference in Tennessee. And I mean, I think we started 18 freshmen and sophomores, and we just got spanked for the most part. Threw for a lot of yards, finished second in 4A in passing, but it didn't result in touchdowns, and it was just a really tough year. But by this year right now, I mean, I'm not there for – I'm here doing this with Manny, and so our head coach who's always ran the D is running the offense in the summer while they're doing 7-on-7s and things like that. And, you know, he's just like, I don't even have to do anything. All the kids know every single thing that we're doing.
Right.
He's like, there's not anything. And I saw that in spring ball. I mean, we got out. I was there for all of spring. I didn't really have to correct anything because they all know it.
And that was a benefit. That was a benefit for us, like running that same system from 6th grade. By the time we got to high school, you know, a lot of times with high school, like, you know, the freshman guys, like they do their own thing. They're going to use our verbiage. It's some form of what we have or what we do, but you got to tweak it a little bit. I mean, we came in freshman year and we were running the exact same, you know, it was all the same. And it was like that from 6th grade. So by the time we were seniors, I mean, shit, we could have called, I mean, you know, 7-on-7s were us calling our own plays, kind of like, hey, we know exactly what's kind of going on. So there is something to be said about, you know, the stability and being in that system for such a long time, you know, repping the same things over and over. We'd add a couple tweaks here or there and whatnot. But I mean, for the most part, it was, you were ahead of the game when it came to that type of thing.
Yeah, and I think that's a thing in general that – because I've just been – you know, I go and I work with high schools and a few colleges all over the country teaching them their air raid, like from start to finish. And I'll go on like a Thursday, either like a Thursday or a Friday, and I'll be there through Sunday or Monday. And, you know, I teach everything I know from start to finish, every single thing we do.
Right.
And I've probably done that with about 40 schools over the last 3 years. And then I've probably done about 20 more full staffs on Zoom and then countless individual coaches. But, you know, that's the thing. There was a school in Oklahoma that I worked with this spring. And, I mean, they've done an excellent job of installing it. And, you know, I have like 4 different emails with Huddle because I'm on all these different accounts. And you know, I try to keep up with them the best that I can, or, you know, they'll ask me a question like, hey, we're struggling with this. We're struggling with shallow. Can you go look at these 6 clips and, you know, give some insight? But what this coach told me in Oklahoma, and he was like a long-term flex bone guy. And he's just like, this is a system. He's like, it's so easy because it's a system. And I don't know. I feel like when I watch most football on Saturdays, I feel like it's a collection of formation and plays. And I feel like, you know, it's hard for me to look and be like, okay, this is a true system of what they're doing. Obviously, it's clear if you watch any of the service academies running their option stuff. That's clear. That's a system, man. There's answers to this, but so many teams, it's just like, to me, it just looks like, okay, they're just running a lot of plays. And I think that's, for me, what makes air raids so easy. And I'm seeing it with run and shoot too, even though they're different in a lot of ways. There's definitely a system and the whys of when you're calling this and all of that. And I mean, I think that's it's really cool. I tell you, I've really, really enjoyed being here with Manny, working with this. And it was really strange. It was strange for me because it's the first time since 2008 that I wasn't running the air raid. And you know, and
broaden those horizons, coach. Broaden those horizons. Expand. Always learn, right?
yeah.
Something else. You're gonna take stuff away that you never even thought was. Wow, I never thought of that. You know what I'm saying? And look, if there's one thing I could say about Dave, it's like, he's constantly looking for something different or a tweak or this or that. And I'm sure he would attest to it. Like from the time he started calling plays to like what it is now and what he does and all of his, how he's adopted certain aspects of, into his system. Like that's kind of what's allowed him to evolve and be successful at every level of ball, regardless of what he has Jimmy and Joe wise.
I think you brought up a point of how, like, because I think what Derek mentioned, the go route, you were going to say that you don't like the fact that they can read the drawn play on their wrist. I was curious what it was. Did you think it creates limitations to figure things out? Yes, that's what I figured.
Well, I think it really. I mean, because when I first learned the air raid, I didn't learn it. My first exposure to the air raid was actually one of my best friends was coaching at a high school that was running the Tony Franklin system.
Yep.
So for my first 2 years of doing air raid stuff, that was 08. And then in 9 and 10, I ran the Tony Franklin system. After 10 is when I went to a clinic with the mummies and started building that relationship and learning their version of it. And
drinking that Kool-Aid.
Oh yeah. But at the Tony Franklin system, there was the wristbands that said what your individual assignment was. Right. And I loved it. I was like, this is so cool. But then for me, it just got to the point, because I can't tell you how many times I would be lined up at quarterback there. I've called on my wristband. It says the whole play. I find it. I'm like, oh, I want to run this play. And I find I have that. And then I yell it out, to the players. They all look down, they get it. But then I'm like, damn, if I could have him running this certain route right now, this would be wide open. And so I found a limitation with the wristbands in that. And that's where I kind of see the same.
Although you could teach tags, I think. So that was one of the things. The only reason I could say I've learned this is because I coached I went from coaching high school for 20 years to coaching my son's team. And when they were 8, it was like developmental. You're on the field with them. So, you taught them plays, but basically you told them where to go. But then last year, the youth league changed. AYF changed it where there was no more developmental at 9. So you had to be off the field. And I was like, holy shit. Other than teaching them, like a handful of plays. Like, let's say I just took the area, but then I have to teach them all these different, how to read this and that wasn't going to happen. So I said, how can I figure this out? So I basically put stuff on the wrists, right? And drew out plays. And basically every play has 3 plays in it. Okay. And use colors and things like that so they know which is what. But you make the block schemes the same for every play, like on that play. So the linemen don't get confused, right? You just make the same. And the guys who have to kind of adjust are your backs and your receivers based on what you're doing. But basically, the concept which Derek taught me a while ago was, in a run play, like unless you got a wide receiver that really will block, have them run a route because someone's going to cover them, right? So the guys are going to cover them for the most part, or they're at least going to drop, and then so we would utilize that. So especially young kids. And then the thing I recognized the limitation, the exact thing you said. I was like, oh man, like this play's good, but like this kid's doing this. Like I really would like to have my guys do this, but I have it drawn out there, and I didn't want to confuse them. So I came up with like a handful of tags that they would be able to do. So so it was basically one answer for something that could happen. You know what I mean? Like, so they would have a chance, and it wouldn't just be like a play that was good, but not as good as it could be. So I'm constantly trying to evolve that. What I found is that like they did really great with it. So you could then teach concepts backdoor style with young kids on it. So, okay, like we have a mesh in there and, we have that concept. And so then we start they've seen that from 7-on-7 flag. It's on every single thing they do, and then it's also in tackle, right? So it's on all their play sheets all the time. Now we're starting to teach them like, okay, we now understand that this is what concept and mesh, and all right. So now, when do you stop? When do you keep running? Like start. So we're starting to teach that because they kind of know it's really a set number of plays that they're in.
Yeah.
And it's allowing them to now adapt. Now the difference is, unless someone gets really mad at me, which could happen, you never know in youth football, but they get mad. They get much more mad than they do in high school. But
which is wild to think about, Dave,
them,
after some of the things that we've been through.
Yeah, that's true. I could have them for 6-7 years. These kids, right? So by the time they're 13, 14, I've been teaching it since they were 9. By the time, 8, 9, by the time they're 13, 14, literally you're walking them into high school with like, these kids know all these concepts already. Yeah. I don't care what, like every coach has different terminology. So these kids are independent of terminology. Terminology doesn't matter. Because I had, when I came in there, I was like, oh, we'll call it this. I remember 2 of the kids said, looked at me, they're like, we've been running the same play for like a month, you know what I mean? And they're like, what did that play mean again? I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, this is different than high school. So, but what I thought about was I heard a coach say that, man, you go to high school, they teach this. You go to college, this is the words for that. You go to the pros, this is the words for that. It might be the same, but if they know the concepts of everything, then whatever system they go into, they can in their mind go, oh shoot, that's just mesh, or oh shoot, like you know what I mean, that's stick vertical, or that's what it is. And so my kids would never know. They know the color or the name that I call the play, but really the truth is I tell them that's irrelevant. Like know the concept. And
this is a flood.
Yes, this is a flood. This plays a flood, and we might call it purple this week, and it might be green next week. It's on your wrist. You don't have to really remember anything. So, but you know that this is flood. So when they see the drawings, they know this is flood, and they know like, okay, flood is either going to be low to high, high to low. You know what I mean, type of thing, depending on what coach wants to do, and they run their route and they understand it. And then down the line, like I've started to teach them, like, okay, all right, if you're the guy that's running the vertical, on the flood, like the outside guy, a lot of people run, the intermediate, the shallow, the vertical, or whatever you want to run with that guy. If I tag this, you're now doing this, right? Or I would do I just tell them, hey, we're going to run this play here, which is the flood, right? Whatever we call it, but the flood. And I'm just going to have this guy run the outside guy, instead of going vertical, I'm just going to run a jailbreak screen because they're running flood already. They're banging into each other. So this kid comes down, he catches it, he hits the seam. So it's like, you know what I mean? The only difference is obviously quarterback has to be smart enough to know, okay, I'm not rolling here, right? On flood. I'm just firing it out there. But they kind of, and it's amazing what they've learned. So I have some of the same kids each season if they do 7-on-7 or they do flag. And I've seen the kids that I've had over and over again, they just know the concepts now. Like they kind of like, they're doing it each season. It's a different, flag, you can't do this. And 7-on-7, obviously there's no running. But like they start to know the concepts. And the kids who are with me, like the parents who are like, all right, I got to be with Dave's team all the time. Their kids are so far advanced. And anytime we need a play, we go to those kids because they know all the concepts. They know all the concepts all the time. It's not even, I mean, they are really good players, but they know the concepts. So they've kind of evolved, and they're evolving past people who might be similar within the system. And I think that's what I think the air raid does a great job of. The more kids are in the system, they evolve. So a good player can become great because he's evolving everything he sees. That when he's running route, he's evolved. Oh, that's the reaction of the DB. Great. This is what I'm doing. Like, and they look like, you watch him and you go, wow, this guy's unbelievable. But you know what he is? He understands spacing and concepts, and he understands timing. And as good as the player is, he now looks like a whole nother level. And I think that translates up the levels, because you always say, like, how does a guy like Wes Welker, who was Texas Tech, right? Or Edelman,
Yep.
who, what was that? Edelman was a quarterback, I think, right?
He was a quarterback at Kent State.
Yeah. So he's going to pick things up, right? So those kind of guys playing in that systems or those positions when they go out to receiver allows them. They're really good athletes, but you would argue that there's no way they should make it in the NFL from a physical stature standpoint.
Welker's probably the most, like, he probably did the most with less of any player in the history of the NFL.
And
like ever. And no, I agree with that.
And you could look at his that's
being in that Texas Tech system probably helped him a lot, where people used to say that was, remember when it used to be a negative term, like a system guy, like, you remember that used to be a negative term? Well, now those systems are what everyone runs. Like, they run versions of it or plays from it. But what's the guy from Washington State who was a Minshew, right? Oh, the word Minshew would have been he's a system guy, so
right?
Yeah. Meanwhile, he's going to last as a backup or a viable starter if he has to go in for 15, 20 years in the NFL, because the things he can do, even if he's not the athlete that, let's say, some of the guys that are like, I guess, the everyday starter, he lasts forever as a regular guy.
Well, that was something Leach had talked about. I remember he said it in media, because they were like, well, Minshew's a system guy and he didn't go under center, so he can't take a snap under center. And, Leach is like, well, youth coaches can teach quarterbacks to take a snap under center. Why are you paying these NFL guys all these millions of dollars if they can't teach a quarterback how to take a snap under center?
Right.
It's like, how hard is it if you can get a youth kid to go under center and take a snap? How hard is it to get an NFL quarterback to learn to take a snap under center? And I thought that was a really valid point. Going back to what you were talking about the go route and things like that, I do see a lot of merit when you speak of it from a youth standpoint and learning. I'm a firm believer, once you get to probably the high school level, if you have to put your plays on a wristband, or you have to give the routes to your guys, like telling them their assignment, you're probably doing too much. You're probably either doing too much or you're not teaching what you do well enough.
Right.
Because, I think by the high school level, because that's probably the most common answer I give people when they bring up these things is, I'm like, if you have to put it all on a wristband, you're probably just doing too much. Because I've never been a part of any staff that at the end of the year, I was like, man, we needed more plays in. Even with our limited amount of plays that we run, I've never went into a game or something where I'm sitting there and we're straight, and I'm looking at the call sheet and I'm like, we just don't have enough good plays here. But anywhere I've ever been, I could easily say, like, oh, we didn't need all of that. Even if the script is, mine and Manny's, the first script that we had here for game one, we had, out of 3x1, we had 3 pass plays. Out of 2x2, we had 2 pass plays. Then we had veer out of 3x1, and out of 2x2, we had sprint draw and super screen, which is the back, screen to the back. So if you took everything we had and put them both ways, it was like 16 or 18 total things we could do. And even look at that, we didn't call every play.
Hell no.
It's like you never need that much. And so many, it's just like, well, we want to have this just in case. But do you really need just in case? Do you really need 6 cover 2 beaters? Or, in all actuality, if they're running cover 2, one play should be able to, you really only need one beater for everything. They might switch it up on you and you have something, but as a whole, like, I just think that we, it's really funny. The call sheet that Manny didn't have a call sheet, but I made one just to have so I could be there with him. And it's probably like, it was smaller than like a Post-it card. And I had it folded like with 2x2, 3x1 on another side, but literally it's about this big. And then, you see the huge folders.
Right.
And that's
guys, play sheets are like,
you don't need a lot.
It's like a board. No,
Well,
I mean, look, Leach used like an index card, right? Like that's what it was.
yeah, essentially. And
I use 6 plays in a game, but they have
Yep.
a run, a pass, or a counter off of it. 6
so
plays.
essentially 18 total.
Yeah, and right or left, right or left.
Yeah.
You go do it to the right, you do it to the left. But
I
yes,
mean,
Yep.
you're doing twice as much as we are, Coach.
that's
With
But,
10-year-olds.
But I tell you, like Ronnie Van Clark, who, in San Antonio before we folded last month, our O-line coach was Ronnie Van Clark, who's longtime NFL, CFL offensive line coach. I mean, he's brilliant. He's about the smartest guy I've ever talked to, just talking actual football schematics. He's unbelievable. But, I was talking with him, and, he's talking about the years in the NFL. He's like, we're talking about those huge like folders or poster boards with 1 million plays. And, he's like, we would be in like week 13 and our OC would call a play that we hadn't ran since training camp. And then the guys are executed and he's pissed at them.
right.
It's like, do you really need that much? Like, your plays probably aren't very good or very versatile if you need that many different plays at any level. I mean, hell, in the spring league, we were the only staff that wasn't coached by former NFL guys.
Right.
We were going against Terry Shea and Jerry Glanville and I can't remember who the one was. I mean, like 2 or 3 of them became USFL head coaches the next year. But just a disclaimer: I see the mailman walking up, so my dog's probably gonna go crazy if he hears it.
Oh no, Coach, you're good. You're good.
But we were the only non-NFL team, and we were the only expansion team in the spring league that year. Everybody else was probably bringing back at least about 60% of their roster. We had 2 weeks to put together a roster. And, they were all familiar with systems and all of these things. And, we only practiced 1 time a week on the field. Everybody else is practicing like 3 times a week. We're all in the same hub there in Indianapolis. And it was kind of interesting because everybody would say, like, they hated us because they're like, it's okay, puppy. They're like, they hated us because we didn't practice. They're like, you guys don't practice. They would all be out in the middle of the summer practicing out on Buckets game field, and they'd come back in at noon just sweating their butts off, and we're sitting like in the lobby maybe drinking a beer or something and hanging out. And we're like, hey, guys, how was practice? We'll see you. We'll see you Friday night when we play, or we'll see you Thursday night. And they hated us for it. But, like, the thing is, what we did was so simple that we only got 7 practices. There's 7 total days from when we all arrived, all 4 teams that were in our division. We had 7 days to get ready for game 1. And you would see our opponents busting plays in week 5. We were sharp assignment-wise by game 1 because what we did was so simple. And, that really pushes your perception of how you see things, especially going against these legendary defensive coaches like Glenville, that we went for 4 straight weeks. We ran the same opening script, the same 12 plays in a row, 4 straight weeks. Like, play 1 was literally like, okay, throwing like fade flat to the right. Play 2, and the only adjustments we made is 1 week we did a motion and we threw what we call a Larry, a quick screen to the motion guy. And the next week we faked it and we threw a fox. We threw a vertical off of it. Or like 1 week we'd do maybe like ISO, and then the next week we'd fake the ISO and do a reverse. But I mean, total out of, from this game to the next game, out of those 12 plays, there was like 2 or 3 that were a change up. The others were the exact same play in the exact same order. We had 3 games that on the 5th play we ran a reverse, out of the same formation on the 5th play. And you start to think about it like, how much are we overcomplicating things by spending 40 hours game planning when, I mean, we had coach came to see me and Hal that week, and they got there on like Tuesday, and they're like, yeah, I'm really excited to see how you guys game plan. I'm really excited to sit in on this. we got to the lobby. We met him. We went and ate lunch, and we ate lunch. We got back to the hotel, and he's just like, "Okay, I've got to go use the bathroom." Me and Hal sat down in the lobby. He's like, "I'm going to come back. I'm so excited to see this," because we're like, "Yeah, we're going to do the game plan." In the 5 minutes that he was going to the bathroom, he came back, and we're like, "Oh, the game plan's already done."
Yep.
And, he was blown away because I think he thought there was going to be so much in depth. And all we literally did is like coming off -1 to -5, we never changed those 3 plays. That stays the same all year long. Yellow zone, which is -6 to 19, is going to be shallows. It's going to be the surge screen and the run. That doesn't change all year long. Red zone and goal line is essentially going to be, for the most part, stick and corner with a few runs and mesh. And then third and long is going to be Y cell, Y cross, probably verticals, probably mesh wheel, and maybe like one of those slow screens. And short yardage is going to be our runs and quick game check or shallow. That's pretty much it. Then the only thing that we would normally, if we did change, would be the opening script that we're just going down in order. But like I say, there we did it 4 straight weeks, and then about the fifth week, we were like, yeah, we probably need to change it up a little bit. But
Nice.
it goes to show that I think at the end of the day, I think play calling, I'm very outspoken about this. I think that play calling might be the most overrated part of football. And I think as an offensive coordinator, and you always take like such pride in being like, oh, he's a great play caller, things like that. It really attacks the position of offensive coordinator. But at the end of the day, it's about execution, because some of the best games I've ever called, we got our ass kicked and barely scored. But I was like, man, the calls were there. They just didn't execute at all. And then I've had games that I felt like I called a terrible game, and we put up 60 because our guys just executed. And so, I always say that the most important thing is execution, not the play call, because you could call the perfect call. If they don't execute it, it's never going to work. You call a bad play call
100%.
and they execute it, it still looks good and you still look good. So, I think that's something that's just maybe play callers get there are times that you come up with a little, a crafty play call that you catch them. But as a whole, it's just all about your kids being able to execute. And that's why having such a small playbook and just getting so much repetition leads to success, because
and having the best guys you can get.
Well, yeah, that never.
That helps. Yeah, that's always going to trump everything.
well, and I'd love to have seen it, because that's the thing, because we're such, when you run something like the air raid or the run and shoot, it's so taboo that the top dogs don't want to touch you. So you end up taking like these second rate programs that, I would have loved to have seen.
Why did top guys not want to touch people that run that? Why did they not want to touch guys that say I'm an air raid or a run and shoot guy? Why did top? What's the reason behind that?
I think the biggest thing is just the stigma of it, that they don't really know about it. They don't know what it is, and there's this perception that what you're doing is just crazy, and it's really not. There's rhyme and reason to all of it, and it all makes sense. And I think that if you would have taken Leach and put him at Florida or somewhere like that, or University of Texas, when people are like, oh, air raid doesn't win national championships. Well, hell, the air raid, the coaches that go to air raid team, the schools that hire the air raid coaches are the schools that have been 2-10 and 3-9 for the last 6 seasons.
Well, Spurrier used to deal with that. Spurrier, who ran the fun and gun, back in the 90s, and that was a system-based, offense. And he was at Florida when he went from Duke to Florida. He took that same system and won the national championship. But then all of a sudden, the fun and gun became like they started to call it like a system, like all of a sudden Spurrier was now like a mad scientist too. I always found that so crazy. I felt like it was other coaches that perpetuated that somehow Spurrier was now a mad scientist.
I mean, that could be smart.
Yeah. I guess, right.
Well, a wild thing about Spurrier, though, because I remember, and I always thought about it. I mean, I just think of the perceptions of me as, say, a teenager at the time when you had Spurrier at Florida, and you had Mummy and Leach at Kentucky. And I remember, I'm like, yeah, Danny Werfel throwing it like 50 times a game. They only threw the ball around like low 20s a game at Florida at the time. And then when I thought of Kentucky, it was like, man, the air raid, they're throwing it deep all over the field. And then you watch them. It's something I watch all the time with my high school quarterbacks when I'm trying to show them like the essence of what the air raid is. And easily the biggest win at Kentucky was 1997 when they knocked off Alabama. And it's the only time they beat Alabama now in over 100 years. And, I'll show it to our guys, and I think that Couch was something like 34 of 55 or 38 of 55. And I'll show my high school, like my sophomore quarterback this year. There's only 4 throws that go further than 10 yards downfield. It's catching and throwing swings, shoots, hitches, slants, shallows, quick screens. And, you look at it and you can go find any of these old Tim Couch highlights, and they'll show like every single completion he had on games on YouTube. I think it's a guy like Corey P048. And it's awesome. You go look at these Couch highlights, and he's literally, you won't find a game that he throws further than 10, 15 yards downfield more than 5 or 6 times. And so it was really just this ball control, catch and throw. But at the time, it was just so crazy throwing so much. But run and shoot's the same way. You can go back to 70s and 80s, and you got guys throwing for 500, and people don't really talk about that. But I think the biggest difference in all of this is not, RPO has been a huge change for offensive football. But outside of that, where the game has really changed is defenses. Because you watch those same Kentucky videos, and all that everybody does, you're watching Bama, they're still sitting with 7 in the box against spread.
Right.
And they're just playing like quarters.
That's how we used to do it.
There's no zone blitz. There's nothing like this. So, it's just it's probably like the defenses you see at dang near like in youth ball now is what SEC defenses are running when the area was coming out, or, no telling what.
You'd be amazed about how, and high school's the same way, coaches have evolved, that they've watched enough on YouTube and that they know how to move guys out. That used to be the thing we used to laugh about, like how they wouldn't move the linebacker out. I'm like, okay, I guess you just want me to
or linebacker with a neck collar over a slot receiver trying to cover him down. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like,
one thought I had, and before I let you go, I was thinking about too, what might be the college at least, getting running backs to come to your university is more of a recruit, is much more of a, I think a lot of these guys don't understand. They think they won't get a running back to come to them if they're running a system where they throw it 50 times a game. And it's hard to get some of those 4- and 5-star running backs, where in college they can be very effective, and they might feel like they can't get all of those guys. Now, and I think that might be some of the fear from that. And I think that's why Spurrier, like his fun and gun was a lot more down the field stuff, but the compromise would be, obviously he could get top tier running backs in Florida. And so now he's throwing it a little bit less because Florida's playing XYZ school and they're better than them. He's just going to turn around and hand the ball, give the ball to the running back. So even though he's got his fun and gun system against some of these teams, I'm sure that running back that's a 5-star is reeling off $180 against some of these teams. So I think that might be part of it too, a little bit.
Like, I think it's been, I think I've been an offensive coordinator at the junior college level for six seasons, 6 or 7. And I've had twice as many All-American running backs as I've had All-American receivers. And we've finished at least top 3 in the nation every year but one. And that year we were top 5 in the nation in passing.
But it's perception. It's perception.
Yeah,
so
like 2021, we led the nation in passing as a team, had the nation's leading passer, but we also had the nation's leading rusher in JUCO.
Right.
And there's this perception that we don't run the ball. And we always don't run it, but our running back touches the ball just as much in our offense as in any offense in football. And
Right.
I mean, if you look at Leach, almost every year at Washington State, I think he had 2 or 3 years of running backs led the team in receptions.
I never, in the 3 years I was in the system, I never had did not have a 1,000-yard rusher.
Yeah. But I mean, for us also, it was throwing. We threw the ball to the running back so much, and that's something that's different here with Manny and the run and shoot is you got super screen and that's it for the running back catching passes. But now as we're merging this raid and shoot, as we're calling it, last week our first touchdown was throwing to the back out of the backfield on Y corner. And so, we got stick and corner in. We've got our tags off of 6 that we're running now off streak. This week we're adding more. We're pretty much adding like a facet of the air raid every single week to this. Now,
nice.
I'm sitting here looking at the diagram of what we're adding this week, and I'm really excited to run it. So
it's awesome.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be fun. And then I think Manny's done the triple shoot and sold that system and had clients, and I've done my consulting. And yeah, I think what we're going to do when we finish all of this is we're going to put this all together and put it into a system that we can teach coaches. And I think it's going to be a really cool thing that's going to give you like a wide toolbox of plays that you can run that all like tie in together, because you might not want to carry 12 pass concepts. Now, the one thing that we're doing is none of our concepts are essentially, it's going to be 4 run and shoot concepts out of trips and 2 air raid concepts out of trips, then 4 air raid concepts out of 2x2 and 2 run and shoot concepts out of 2x2. So every play you run, you're only going to run out of 1 total formation. And
right.
But yeah, so we're excited about getting that all put together, and we're having late nights here drawing on the boards, like finding things because the key here is getting it all to actually fit each other and not having a concept in just because we have it, or not running it the exact same way we've ran it maybe in the air raid, because we want it all to kind of look alike. So, now we're putting in an air raid play that is a hell of a counter off of the go concept and run and shoot. And then we got an air raid play that's a great counter off a streak. And so that's kind of what we're putting in is we're taking a lot of these. We got some of the air raid quick game concepts that are catch, get it out. But what we're also doing is taking these base run and shoot concepts that you see over and over again, like choice, streak, and go. And we're putting in an air raid play to counter that play. And it's coming together so cool, man. It's going to be really,
awesome.
really good. And so we're really, really excited about it.
Well, Coach, it's been great talking to you. What do we got here? 2 hours flew by. You're in the top 5 now, I think, of all time.
That's it.
Taking us out, yes, which is quite an honor. Because
if I didn't have to plan for practice, then we would go till we could be number 1. I like to set records, but
get out there. I love it.
The record is a crazy one, right? What did we do that one time with Nympheus when he was rolling, and that was like 2. It was like 2.5. I don't even know how it happened.
It was over 2.5.
We went way off on tangents for like 20 minutes at a clip, and then we came back.
It's wild. It is, Coach. I appreciate it. We appreciate you taking the time. Know you're busy. I know we've been trying to get this for a while, so I'm glad it all came together. Really appreciate you taking the time, man. Look forward to seeing where you guys take this whole thing.
I appreciate you. It's been a lot of fun, man.
Keep blowing guys out.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm trying to use your connections with Manny and tell him to stop having so much mercy. I will say this: Manny is a liar, because all last week he told our team, no quarter this week. He's like, we're if we score 100, we score 100. Then we're up 25-0 in the first quarter, and he's like, shit, we just got to start running the ball. And I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out, buddy.
That's so funny. That's great.
I love it.
That's great.
Coach,
All right,
appreciate
Coach,
you,
have a
man. Thanks so
great day.
much.
All right. Appreciate you guys.
All right, bye.
Thanks, man.
That was great stuff. Oh man,
Awesome.
really
That's funny.
excellent. Thank you.
That's why that's awesome. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, it's really cool to see what they're doing, and I would love to see where they take that. You know what I mean? Because people think, people don't understand that those systems are two different systems to now like combine them together and like just the concepts across the board. It'd be really cool to see where they go with it.
No doubt about it. It's really, really interesting. It's like I take a lot of stuff from what they do. It's funny how the thought process of the way that they think about they just think about all their versions of their play as one play.
Yeah, that's it. It's really
Yeah.
what it comes down to. And the simplicity of it, I think.
Same play, like when I do different versions of it, as like it's the same.
Of course.
Play, but you gotta, I have to think about it as a different element that it.
Yeah.
Does,
and they're literally just like, no, this is this, So I think it's really cool. Look, excited about everything that they're doing. To link those two guys kind of up, it's really interesting. And we're back tomorrow.
We're back tomorrow. I looked up Danny Werfel's numbers, by the way. Unbelievable.
I can't even imagine.
That's
why there's a statue of him. Tebow's right next to him outside the stadium. So,
I mean, back then people still threw more interceptions. You know what I mean? But
of course, it's just a different beast, bro. It's a totally different beast.
The number of yards per attempt are so high. Like how many yards they get per catch? They were averaging 17 yards a catch in 96. 15
crazy.
In 95, they averaged 15 and a half yards per catch. Like, think about that. That's crazy.
I know. That's incredible.
Yards per attempt, they were averaging 10.1.
Yep.
That's
just crazy.
Down, no matter
those numbers are ridiculous.
Ridiculous because it's a first down just because you throw, whether it's incomplete or not. Eventually, you get a first down. So, like, it's crazy the numbers they had. Crazy. Anyway, Spurs,
awesome.
it is funny. All right, I'll let you go tomorrow. We got it.